Hello, good game. Welcome back, ghouls and goblins. I hope you're having a magical day. Thank you so much for taking the time to support the channel. Kamigawa Neon Dynasty spoilers. We're days and days behind. I think we'll be going from January 30th all the way through February 3rd. So this is going to be a long video. Bear with me. But, we've took a quick preview of some of these cards. Come up with some talking points, right? And there's a lot of bangers in this list, let me tell you what. So, I don't really know what's going to happen to Magic, but we're going to find out together. So make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're interested in more Magic the Gathering content. And yeah, let's take a look at some of these new cards. Alrighty, so we left off with Arm Guard Familiar, and then we have Nashi Moon Sage's Scion for 3. Now, the quality on this is to be desired, but it's a 3/2 with ninjutsu for 4, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of each player's library, which is very good, your own as well, and then until the end of turn, you may play one of those cards. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its mana value rather than paying its mana cost. This is absolutely fantastic. So at any point in time, I would basically pay 7 life, if I had 7 life, of course, to take an extra turn. Now, this is banned in Standard, yes, Alrund's Epiphany. However, it's a good baseline for value, right? Storm the Festival, as an example. I would pay 7 life to cast a Storm the Festival. That's absolutely fantastic, right? So I do think that the Sage's Scion is going to be making its rounds for sure. And even though it is a dual black 3 casting cost, you can ninjutsu it in for that additional mana, now dropping that second black source. So it really does make it more viable in a multicolored deck, which is pretty cool. So dope card, absolutely love it. Looking forward to making some decks around that. The Moon Circuit Hacker for 2. First off, the art on this card is ridiculous. A little bit better quality. A 2/1 for 2, ninjutsu for 1, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card unless it entered the battlefield this turn, right? So the first time it does the ability, you'll just get to draw a card, which is really, really good. And of course, you're casting this from your hand for 1 mana, so you're going to be dealing 2 damage, drawing a card for 1 mana, and then after that, you have kind of the cycle engine where you're drawing and discarding, right? So I do really like this Moon Circuit Hacker. I think that's a great tempo card. Anywho, moving on to Guardian of Orobo. Maya's in studio this morning. She's been making a racket. She's been getting around here. We'll maybe put her at the bottom so we can still talk about the card. This is a 3-drop, 3/4, and a Moonfolk Samurai Defender. The Samurai Warrior creature type is important in the set. That's why we're mentioning it here and there. However, a 3/4 modified creatures you control can attack as though they didn't have Defender itself included. So modifications, if you're unfamiliar, will include any form of counter, whether it be plus counters, minus counters, poison counters, death touch counters, things of this nature, auras, and equipments. So really anything that's equipped to your creature or attached to it, touching it. Anywho, the Historians of Wisdom for 3, an enchantment aura, enchant creature or artifact. When it enters the battlefield, enchanted permanent. If the enchanted permanent is the creature with the greatest power among creatures you control, or on the battlefield in general, draw a card. And as long as an enchanted permanent is a creature, it's going to get +2, +1. So this is, it is what it is. It's going to be better in this set, I feel, than other sets. I always say this, and I think it holds true, that typically, and more specifically auras than equipments, because there's contact points, right, that allow for removal. So I'm going to pay 3 mana for an aura, put it on the stack to target a creature, and they're going to scoop that creature out from underneath me, right? This is very bad. In a similar fashion as you would pay for an artifact equipment into play, and then they'll pay for the equip cost, and boom, it gets scooped out from underneath of us. We're losing value, right? Because we're paying for nothing. So through this base rule, equipments and auras are typically very, very bad. I know, but you can kind of form synergies and decks that thrive upon them still. For all the fanboys. Anywho, the Prodigy's prototype for 3 is an artifact vehicle This is a 3/4 vehicles. Whenever one or more vehicles you control attack, create a 1/1 pilot creature token with this creature crews vehicles as though its power were 2 or greater. It has crew 2 for itself. The vehicles are actually fairly decent, and I'd like the vehicles because if your opponent has a field wipe, right, they're destroying all creatures, this artifact vehicle will be in artifact mode because it's not crewed. It survives. Boom, you play a creature, it's got summoning sickness, right? It's not attacking, but now you can use it to crew to get that attack in, and I'm sure you're all familiar with Asuka's Chariot, right? So crew is pretty cool, and the ability to crew things as though its power were 2 or greater, I think is going to be fairly beneficial as well, but it is a specialized deck, and probably won't be super competitive unless within limited. Awaken Awareness for 2 blue plus X as an aura, enchanting artifact or creature. When it enters the battlefield, put X +1/+1 counters on enchanted creature, enchanted permanent, I should say, because it can be an artifact. And as long as the enchanted permanent is a creature, it has base power and toughness of 1/1. This is fairly interesting, actually. So you could nuke a creature of your opponent's. The utility here is quite nice, right? You could, turn one of their 5/5s into a 1/1 for 2 mana, right? Not bad. You can also kind of buff one of your creatures up, which is pretty cool, but if you sink more than 2 into it with X. So the utility of this being both an offensive and defensive card is pretty cool. Moving on to Ryu, Storm's Edge for 4. This is a 3/3 with first strike, legendary creature, human samurai. Whenever a samurai or warrior you control attacks alone, untap it, and if it's its first combat phase this turn, there's an additional combat phase after this phase. This is fairly goofy, basically, and potentially giving you quadruple strike if you can do a double strike attack phase into another double strike attack phase, right? So there is the potential to put out a lot of damage, and there is, in the future, we'll highlight different ways to, Lethal Form Engine is something you're already familiar with, as this is a triggered ability, which is really cool. So we can kind of copy those triggered abilities in different ways, which is decent, and that's going to give you instead of taking turns, which is more busted, honestly, because now you're getting to play mana. Your own mana is untapping and stuff. You're getting a draw. That kind of gets that out of the way, but you're still taking multiple combats, which is going to be pretty goofy because I would like to see. Well, no, that wouldn't really work. The combat and the turn in general are really the only phases that would bear repeating, unless the draw. You could repeat your draw step, right? But if you repeated a first main phase or a second main phase, you're not getting anything out of that because, yeah. Anywho, the Circuit Mender for 3. This is a very good card. It's uncommon, which is really cool. Artifact creature insect. Whenever it enters the battlefield, gain 2 life, and whenever it leaves the battlefield, draw a card. 2/3. It doesn't ramp you like Solemn Simulacrum, but in a similar fashion, it has enter the battlefield value. It has presence value while it is on the battlefield as a 2/3. And then when it leaves the battlefield, which I'm assuming will be of a form of value from something else, Deadly Dispute is an example, it will also generate further value when it leaves the battlefield, right, to draw a card. So it really does everything you want. A ton of value, if I've said that enough times, with this Circuit Mender. We've got Haiko Yamazaki, the General Wolf, for 4. This is a 3/3 with trample. Legendary creature, human samurai, of course. And whenever a samurai or warrior attacks alone, you may cast a target artifact card from your graveyard this turn, which, there's some really cool artifacts. I believe we talked about one the other day, the lightning daggers or whatever they're called, for double strike. I shouldn't go looking for them. They're right here. Lizard blades, baby! So that's pretty cool, right? There's going to be a lot of cool artifacts that you can spaz out into play, right? So discovering new synergies by kind of going through the cards here together. Moving on, the Sunblade Samurai for 5. There's a 4/4 with Vigilance. You can channel, which means discarding it for an effect. In this case, you'll search your library for a basic Plains, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle, gaining 2 life. Not bad, not great. Very good, probably in limited, right? It's a 4/4 with Vigilance, which is fantastic. And, you know, discarding for the land and life to ensure that you're ramping out is pretty cool as well. The Peerless Samurai. This is pretty decent for 3 mana. It's a 2/3 with Menace. Human Samurai, of course, and whenever a human or samurai attacks alone, that's, you know, one of the stipulations of the mechanic here, I guess. It's like a mechanic that doesn't say what mechanic it is. I guess attacks alone is how we should say it. The next spell you cast this turn is going to cost 1 less. So, you know, not the greatest, but if you can start really adding up these different effects together, you will gain a lot of value. So we've got Satsuki, the Living Lore for 2. This is a 1/3 legendary creature, human druid. So not a samurai, which is nice to see for a little bit. It's got a lot of value here. And first off, the art is absolutely fantastic. Like, this is insane. We can tap it to put a lore counter on each saga that we control. Activate at sorcery speed. Woof. And then whenever it dies, you get to choose one. So you would almost suspect this to be one of the legendary dragons, but it's not because they all have similar death effects. Return a saga or enchantment you control to its owner's hand. Very neat. And then you can also return a saga card from your graveyard to your hand. So getting to choose whether you're bouncing it from the field to your hand or from the graveyard to your hand. The Living Lore is definitely putting out a ton of value. You know, putting sagas on and then bringing them back. And, you know, I'd love to see that. The Generous Visitor for 1. This is a 1/1 creature spirit, and whenever you cast an enchantment spell, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Very good limited card. I don't know if this is going to make it into an enchantment deck, really, because wouldn't you just rather play an enchantment? However, you know, it's there. It's a 1/1 for 1. There's a lot of shrines. We've got shrines. I don't think that shrines will be super viable in standard, as the other shrines are now in historic, I believe. However, it's going to be absolutely bonkers. The Go Shintai of Ancient Wars for 3 is a 2/2 with first strike. And these shrines are actually all creatures, which is fairly cool. So legendary enchantment creature shrine. Again, as a 2/2 with first strike. And at the beginning of your end step, you may pay 1. When you do, it will deal X damage to target creature, target player or planeswalker. Anything but creature. Where X is the number of shrines that you control. And, you know, there's a ton of shrines in the game now, which is pretty cool. And the red shrine, the other red shrine is, you know, fantastic for removing creatures as well. So, like, the one shrine is doing players and planeswalkers, and I believe the other shrine is doing creatures and planeswalkers, which is decent. And then we've got our land, you know, the 2 different forests. Decent. I kind of like the bamboo forest quite a bit, but the tree is also awesome. The swamps, I don't mind the kind of the town look here. That's decent. This is just like an old, that's a swamp. Yeah, absolutely. Mountain, pretty decent, right? You can see like the forges in the distance. I like that. The, you know, mountaintop trail of lava. Plains, decent. Love that. Symmetry of the rice fields. And the rock gardens, absolutely sign me up. Islands, we got a nice little bridge over the stream. And then I think this is like the Sky City, but also, you know, incorporating the Sky Stream, right? I like how the stream just like hits a 90-degree angle, right? What is up with this water? Anywho, into some actual cards again. We have the Mech Titan Core for 2. This is a 2/4 artifact vehicle. We can pay 5 to exile the Mech Titan Core and 4 other artifact creatures and or vehicles you control. Create the legendary 10/10 construct artifact creature token with flying, vigilance, trample, lifelink, and haste that is all colors. And when that token leaves the battlefield, return all of the cards exiled this way, except itself, to the battlefield under their owner's control. True for 2. Woof! The historic Ugin deck is going to be absolutely ridiculous. Let me tell you what. Even just like, and it's colorless. It fits in all the decks. You know what I mean? That is like effectively good across the board. decent. And we have that token to show you after as well. But, you know, I like it. I think that's a great card. The Rise Infiltrator for 2 as a 1/2 with flying. You can pay 4 to give it +2/+2 until the end of turn. An absolute limited bomb. You know, those mana sinks. It's flying. Evasion in limited is dope. Paying 4 to give it +2/+2 and, you know, paying 8 for +4/+4. How many times do you really need to do that to win a match, right? We have the Soaring City. Ottawa, the Soaring City? That's a Canadian joke. Anywho, we can pay 1 as a legendary land, tapping it for a blue source. We can also channel it for 4, discarding it to return target artifact, creature, enchantment, or planeswalker to its owner's hand, which is fantastic. And it will, like all of the legendary lands, cost 1 less to activate for each legendary creature that we control. Woof. That's really nice. Walking Skyscraper for 8 as an 8/8, costing 1 less to cast for each modified creature we control. It does have Trample as well, which is, that's good, right? So this is really nice to find in limited. It's an uncommon, so you'll find it consistently. It will have hexproof as long as it's untapped, which is also fantastic in limited. You know, burn through their removal. Don't let them hit it. It's just a good blocker while it's untapped. You know what I mean? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Moving on to the Fable of the Mirror Breaker and Reflection of Kiki Jeky, which I absolutely love. This is a cool card. As a saga, it will trigger when it enters, and then after each of our draw steps, which is quite nice. So creating a 2/2 red Goblin Shaman creature token with whenever this creature attacks, create a treasure. That's awesome. So 2/2 for 3, very bad value, but we can create a treasure, which is still, you know, mediocre value. And then you may discard up to 2 cards if you do draw that many cards, right? So this is a nice cycle through your deck. Maybe get rid of some lands, draw some non-lands, find the next land that you need, something like this. And then finally, exile it and return it transformed as the reflection of Kiki Jeky, which is just fun to say. It's a 2/2 enchantment creature, Goblin Shaman. We can pay 1, tap it, create a token that's a copy of a target non-legendary creature we control, except it has haste, and we sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. All right. Not Burning Ruin Demon. What? Dreadfest Demon, I believe the name of this card is, right? It's a 6/6 with flying. We can... Let me try to pull it. I think it's Dreadfest. Pretty sure. Absolutely. It's the kind of information you're going to need to store, right? Important stuff here. So this is a 7-drop. Pretty expensive, right? 6/6 with flying, and at the beginning of your end step, sacrifice a non-demon creature if you do create a token that's a copy of the Dreadfest Demon. So you can manually stack these triggers on your end step, which is going to be pretty goofy, and you're just going to be making a bunch of 6/6 demons, which is quite nice. It's a very expensive spell, right, for 7 mana. So what we'll be doing is discarding it from our hand with the front side of the saga, and then reanimating it into play, while simultaneously now creating copies of it that have haste, and we can manually trigger those, and we'll be sacrificing the one that would sacrifice itself, which is really, really cool. Double thumbs up. Invoke Justice, you know, if you thought that was a good card. For 5 mana, sorcery speed, return target permanent card from your graveyard to the battlefield, then distribute 4 +1/+1 counters among any number of creatures and or vehicle target player controls. Okay, so you know what a cool card is? Velomachus. Velomachus' power is 5. Sorcery speed, you know, you could have Velomachus in your graveyard, so you're not paying 7 for it, as it is quite expensive. Boom, Invoke Justice, Velomachus out. Velomachus attacks, you get another Invoke Justice. Stop it, right? Born to Drive for 3, an enchantment aura. Enchant artifact or creature. As long as enchanted permanent is a creature, it gets +1/+1 for each creature and or vehicle you control. You know, that's probably going to do some damage in limited. And then the channel, which is quite nice. So discarding it for 3, creating 2 1/1 white tokens, and they will crew for 2 greater, which is pretty goofy, let's be honest, right? Absolutely bonkers. Wow. And, you know, back to Velomachus, because Velomachus is going to be a 9/9. Because it's a 5/5, you're bringing it back from the graveyard, putting these 4 counters on it. On the second attack of Velomachus, you could, you know, you're casting anything you want, right? You're not casting that new red spell for 10, but you can cast, like, a Magma Opus, which is, you know, pretty goofy. There's lots of really crazy things you could cast under 9 mana. Put it, really, almost anything, I think, except for that one spell. Echo of Death's Wail. This is a 3/3 enchantment spirit with flying and haste, and whenever it enters the battlefield, gain control of all rat tokens. Whenever Echo of Death's Wail attacks, you may sacrifice another creature if you do draw a card. So this is actually the transformation of Tribute to Horobi for 2 mana. For 2 mana. Wow. So on entry and then your next draw step, each opponent creates a 1/1 black rat rogue creature token. Which is crazy because you'll gain control of all the rats. So if they don't sacrifice those rats, you get them all. This is a fantastic commander card. Multiple opponents, everybody gets 2 rats, and then all of the rats are mine. I love it. And of course, finally, then you exile the Horobi and transform it into the Echo of Death's Wail. Wow, that's cool. Moving on to the Haitsugu Consumes All for 3 mana. This is a mythic saga. When it enters, destroy each non-land permanent with mana value 1 or less. Treasure tokens, blood tokens, creature tokens, you know, small creatures. That really is fairly decent. And then we're exiling all graveyards. And then finally exile the saga and transform it into the Vessel of the All-Consuming. This is a 3/3 with trample, and whenever it deals damage, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Whenever it deals damage to a player, if it's dealt 10 or more damage to that player this turn, they lose the game. This is an absolute nightmare. If this lands in Limited against you, even in general, I think this is a playable card within Standard. It's a really nice 3-drop. That's good value for 3. Woof. You know what I mean? Absolutely insane. And then, yeah. No words. Brilliant Restoration. Now, this is expensive. 7 mana here, believe it or not, folks, at sorcery speed to return all artifact and enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is like Eerie Ultimatum in mono white. Artifact and enchantment cards. So, an artifact and enchantment mill deck that allows you to cast this card either by bringing it back to your hand with like a Bala Ged Recovery, some form of grab sorcery from the graveyard, or play it from the graveyard, right? Either or, but to just flood the field with everything. You know, all of your artifacts and enchantments, the sagas, oh no, that's going to be a ton of value. And this will be really nice in Historic as well, right? Reality Heist for 7. This is a little bit expensive. Instant speed, and it will be reducted by 1 mana or reduced. For each artifact you control. Seems kind of silly. Look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may reveal 2 artifact cards from among them. Put them into your hand, the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. I mean, I'm sure it's fine in an artifact-based deck, because looking at the top 7 is honestly pretty goofy, right? And you're grabbing 2. And it does have the reduction, so potentially you could cast this for 2. And at that point, it's fantastic, right? For 2 mana, to look at the top 7 and grab 2. Wow, that's really cool. But it needs to be in a specific deck. It's not like Memory Deluge, right? Where it's just good across the board. Norikia Yamazaka, the Poet and Architect of Restoration. Different cards. They don't transform. I don't know why. This one does. I thought this was the backside for some reason. Anywho, the Poet is a 3/2 with Vigilance. Whenever a samurai or warrior attacks alone, you may cast target enchantment card from your graveyard this turn. You still have to pay for it. And then the Architect of Restoration is the backside. This is a 3/4 with Vigilance. Whenever it attacks or blocks, create a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token. That's pretty good. And then on the front side, the Restoration of Inganjo as a 3 mana saga. Entry, search your library for basic planes, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Birth of Meletis. And then You may discard a card. When you do, return target permanent card with mana value 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Woof. That's very good. And then exile it and transform it into the... and this side was very good too, right? 3/4 Vigilance, making tokens. That's a juicy card. Wow. Enormous Energy Blade for 3. Equipped creature gets +4/+0. And whenever it becomes attached to a creature, you're actually going to have to tap that creature. Equip cost is only 2. So it's pretty neat. Maybe you have a way to untap creatures like Light the Way for 1. Instant speed, choose 1. Put a +1/+1 counter on creature or vehicle, untap it, or return target permanent you control to its owner's hand, right? So a little bit of protection, a little bit of untappy doos, pretty decent. And then we have the Fall of Lord Conda for 3. Exile target creature and opponent controls with mana value 4 or greater. That's pretty good. Each player gains control of all permanents they own. Decent if they're trying to take our stuff. And then exile and transform it into Fragment of Conda. It's a 1/3 with Defender, and when it dies, draw a card. Decent. We've got Inganjo's Uprising for 2+X sorcery speed, creating X 2/2 white samurai creature tokens with vigilance. They gain menace and haste until the end of turn. Each opponent creates X -1 2/2 white samurai creature tokens with vigilance. So yours will have menace and haste. Theirs have vigilance. So because yours have menace and haste, you can make 2 of them. They will only get 1, and the 1 can't block the 2 with menace, right? So 4 damage potentially at haste. If they had another blocker, maybe you only cast it for 1, and then they don't get any creatures, and you just get the 1. I don't know. Or you cast it for a bunch, and somehow you make them not block, or something like this. Or wipe their field, LOL. Story Weave for 3, instant speed, choose 1. Put 2 +1/+1 counters on target creature you control. Put 2 lore counters on target saga you control, and the next time 1 or more enchantments enters the battlefield under your control this turn, each enters with 2 additional +1/+1 counters on it. Okay, there's some playability here. And then there's the token for the Mech Titan, which is fairly decent. I like this quite a bit. Yeah. All colors, flying, vigilance, trample, lifelink, haste, 10/10. Very rock and roll. And when it leaves the battlefield, of course, remember, that's going to bring the things used to cast it back into play, which is decent. So, moving on to our next day. You are already dead. Well, I already feel dead. Let me hydrate. Instant speed to destroy target creature that was dealt damage this turn and draw a card for 1. That's pretty neat. The Fang of Shy Jeky. 1 mana, 1/1 with Death Touch. We've seen that a million times. The Inventive Iteration. I can't stand anything with the word iteration in it lately. For 4 mana, it's Saga, and as it enters play, return up to 1 target creature or planeswalker to its owner's hand. That's great. Next up, return target artifact or return artifact card from your graveyard to your hand if you can't draw a card. I guess the drawing is decent, right? And then exile and transform to a 3/3 with flying. Whenever you cast a spell, your opponents can't cast spells with the same mana value as that spell until your next turn. That's going to be better than people think. You just cast on their curve, right? Oh no. That's so good. Living Breakthrough. I really like that. That's neat. And if you could have spells in your deck that have an X casting cost in it, so you can decide how much mana it is. Nice. Essence Capture for 2, instant speed, counter target creature spell, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature that you control, which is pretty neat. I like that. Invoke the Winds for 5 mana, sorcery speed, gain control of target artifact or creature, and untap it. The untapping of that creature is a big component here because their best creature is probably always going to be tapped, right? They're attacking with it. It's tapped. You gain it back. It's tapped because you just spent all your mana on that, and now they just attack through again. So the untapping of that is decent. Soul Transfer for 3 sorcery speed. Choose 1. If you control an artifact and an enchantment, you can cast the spell to choose both. Exile target creature or planeswalker. Return target creature or planeswalker card from your graveyard to your hand. So, that's pretty decent. If you can remove one and grab one back, good value. Prosperous Thief for 3, a 3/2 with ninjutsu for 2. Whenever one or more ninja or rogues creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. That's cute. Anchor to Reality for 4, and then as additional cost to cast the spell, sacrifice an artifact or creature. Woof. Search your library for an equipment or vehicle card. Put that card into the battlefield, then shuffle. If its mana value is less than sacrifice permanent's mana value, scry 2. So this is pretty cool because you could put something that's extremely expensive into the battlefield, right? I'm sure we'll find something, right? Any equipment or vehicle that is incredibly expensive, we can cheat that into play through Anchor to Reality. Nice. Moving on, we have Tekanuma Abandoned Mire, the legendary Swamp. We can tap it for a black source, channel for 4, discard it, mill 3 cards, then return creature or planeswalker card from the graveyard to our hand, 1 less for each legendary creature that we do control. Nezumi Blade Blesser for 3. This is a 3/2, and it has Death Touch as long as you control an artifact. Decent. And it has Menace as long as you control an enchantment. Double decent. Go Shintai of Hidden Cruelty for 4. This is the Black Shrine, legendary enchantment creature. 2/2 with Death Touch. And at the beginning of your end step, you may pay 1 when you do destroy target creature with toughness X or less, where X is the number of shrines that you control. That's pretty decent. And then the Selfless Samurai, this is very good. This is actually worth our time. For 2, it's a 2/2, and whenever... oh, this is actually not it. Pardon. Oh, no, this is it. This is it. Whenever warrior or samurai attacks alone, it gains a lifelink. And then we can sacrifice it at instant speed to give another target creature we control indestructible until the end of turn. This goes in the Winota deck, for sure. So it's like Selfless Savior, turn 1, Selfless Samurai. And it's funny, it's Selfless. You know, they share a name, which is ironic. Well, I don't know if it is. What is irony? LOL. But you can protect your Winota, which is great. They're non-human, so they're going to trigger Winota. It's a good card in general. It'll go in the mono-white deck without a doubt. Milky Smooth, love it. And yeah, it's just a great card. The Spinning Wheel Kick is interesting. This is like a mono-green field wipe. Pay 2 plus double X, sorcery speed. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to each of X target creatures and or planeswalkers, right? So typically mana is not a problem with green. You'll have plenty of it, and you'll have a big creature as well, and then you can just annihilate their field state, which is pretty cool. And then one of the better uncommons that I've seen, besides Spinning Wheel Kick, I guess, the Oni Cult Anvil. It's non-legendary, which is quite nice for 2, an artifact. And whenever one or more artifacts you control leave the battlefield during your turn, create a 1/1 colorless construct artifact creature token. This ability triggers only once each turn. You can tap it to sacrifice an artifact, dealing 1 damage to each opponent, and you gain 1 life. Woof. So the ability triggers only once each turn from each copy of it. It's still a stackable ability. Or maybe not. They would all trigger at once on the stack. So it's still doable, right? Because they all go on the stack together if they're stacked up. So yeah, good card like that. Spirit Sister's Call for 5, an enchantment. And at the beginning of your end step, choose target permanent card in your graveyard. You may sacrifice a permanent that shares a card type with the chosen card. If you do, return the chosen card from your graveyard to the battlefield, and it gains if this permanent would leave the battlefield. Exile it instead. I really do like this. This is an effect that triggers at our end step every turn, right? You know, bringing back other enchantments, other artifacts that we may have sacrificed or had to let go. I like it. I think that's a good card. Weaver of Harmony for 2, another Snick Friend. Other enchantment creatures you control get +1/+1. We can pay 1, tap it, copy target artifact, activated or triggered ability you control from an enchantment source. You may choose new targets for the copy. So, you know, this is absolutely goofy. Super duper goofy. And this ability can be copied as well through something like Lethal Form, right? And, you know, for example, base value, Binding of the Old Gods. You know, destroying 2 permanents, grabbing 2 lands, and there are other really good sagas as well. So the Weaver of Harmony is a really cool card, and it's an enchantment creature, which makes it even better, right? So the Selesnya Enchantments deck is looking pretty juicy. Moving on to Akiba Reckoner Raid. This is actually decent because it's so cheap. For 1 mana, for the first 2 triggers, each opponent loses 1 life, you gain 1 life, and then Exile transform as a 2/2 with Menace. Vehicles you control also will have Menace, which is pretty decent. You know, you get a 2/2, and you deal 2 damage, gain 2 life for 1. I really do like that. And then Light Paws, Emperor's Voice for 2. This is a 2/2 legendary creature, Fox Advisor. Whenever an aura enters the battlefield under your control, if you cast it, you may search the library for an aura card with mana value less than or equal to the aura with a different name, each aura you control. Put that card into the battlefield, attach 2 Light Paws, and then shuffle. Decent. So, guaranteed banned in Singleton. You know what I mean? March of Wretched Sorrow for 1+X, and now this is fantastic. At instant speed, as an additional cost to cast this spell, you may exile any number of black cards from your hand, and it will cost 2 less to cast for each card exiled this way. March of the Wretched Sorrow, dealing X damage to target artifact, creature, or planeswalker, you're gaining X life. Decent. Instant speed, removal plus life gain. So you don't have to discard, and maybe you want to discard. Maybe it's a Reanimator deck, right? Or, you know, fill your graveyard deck. It doesn't have to be a Reanimator. But removal, gain life, instant speed. Very neat. I absolutely love that. Absolutely love that. The Reckoner Bank Buster for 2 as a 4/4 artifact vehicle, crew for 3, enters the battlefield with 3 charge counters on it. Pay 2, tap it to remove a counter from it, draw a card, and at no charge counters, create a 1/1 colorless pilots that can crew things with power 2 or greater. Spell Pierce for 1, counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 2, instant speed, love it. You know, this is on the opposite side of Quench, right? Run Spell Pierce, run Quench. Now you have creature and non-creature counters that are reduced mana value. Cloud Steel Kirin for 3/3/2 flying. Equipped creatures have flying and cannot lose the game, and your opponent cannot win the game. You can still win the game. That's incredible. Reconfigure for 5. Absolutely fantastic. That is a little bit silly. Mobilizer Mech for 2, a 3/4 with flying. Crew for 3, and when it becomes crewed, up to 1 other target vehicle you control becomes an artifact creature until the end of turn. So when you crew it, it crews something else. Decent. For 2 mana, as a 3/4 with flying, you know, you start crewing that. That's a good body, and you're crewing something else. Pretty decent. The Skyblessed Samurai for 7. Stop it. 1 less to cast for each enchantment you control. A 4/4 with flying. I'll allow it. I will absolutely allow it. So let's say you play enchantments your first 3 turns, and then on turn 4, there's 4 mana for 4/4 with flying. And enchantment creatures, right? So it doesn't mean you just need enchantments. You can have enchantment creatures. This is actually not that bad. It's expensive, but it's very good. The Moon Sage's Scion, we already talked about this, I believe, whenever it's just a better quality. And the art is fantastic. The Ninjutsu, we talked about how you don't need double black with the Ninjutsu at an increased cost. And then paying life to cast things. Yeah, that's really cool. The Seven-Tail Mentor for 4, when it enters the battlefield or dies. Very, very good. Right, that double effect. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or vehicle you control. That's a good limited card. Heir of the Ancient Fang for 3, 2/3, and whenever it enters the battlefield with, or sorry, it does enter the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it if you control a modified creature. Of course we will. Moving on to Hinata Dawn Crown for 4, 4/4, Flying Trample, legendary creature, Kirin Spirit. Spells you cast cost 1 less to cast for each target, and spells your opponents cast cost 1 more to cast for each target. This is very, very good. And a Jeskai Commander as well. Coiling Stalker for 2, a 2/1 with Ninjutsu for 2, and whenever it deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control that doesn't have a counter on it already. It's the Yaiba Trespassers, 5 mana, 3/5, channel for 3, discard to tap 2 target creatures you don't control. They don't untap during their next untap step. Network Disruptor for 1 is a 1/1 with flying. When it enters the battlefield, tap target permanent. Opens up the attack lanes. Would be cooler if it had flash. Would be very cool if it had flash. That's February 1st. Moving into the 2nd here. Oh, my lord. We're at 40 minutes. Let's see if we can get this under an hour. Discover the impossible for 3 instant speed. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. Exile one of them face down and put the rest in the bottom of your library in a random order. You may cast the exiled card without paying its mana value. Cost if it's an instant or sorcery with mana value 2 or less. If you don't, put that card into your hand. So, you know, instant speed for 3. Look at the top 5. Draw 1. Cast it for free if it's 2 or less. I don't know. It doesn't seem super bad, but it doesn't seem super great either, because you're only ever going 1 for 1. And then we have a ton of cards that we're going to need to click into here. That's going to be fantastic for the time frame. 4 mana, Rat Ninja, Artifact Creature, Ninjutsu for 2, lifelink. Easy enough. It's a 3/2 as well, which is pretty good. For 4 mana, as a 2/2, Human Ninja Ninjutsu for 3. Whenever it enters the battlefield, return up to 1 target creature to its owner's hand. I actually like that. That's fairly decent. Moving on. Shiga, Akiba Gang Leader for 3 mana. Legendary creature Rat Pilot. And at the beginning of combat during your turn, return target vehicle card from your graveyard to the battlefield. It gains haste. Return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of your next end step. This is very, very, very good. Esika's Chariot comes to mind. If you can turn 1 or turn 2, mill the Chariots, and then beginning of combat, Chariot in play, makes the cats, gets bounced to my hand, I replay it, make 2 more cats. Yes, 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 yes. It's only 3 mana. It's a 4/3 as well. Which might even make things a little bit more goofy, but that's a good card. Moving on, for 2 mana, maybe we'll get there. Boon of Abosuji, instant speed. Target creature gains +X/+X to the end of turn, where X is the greatest mana value among permanents you control, and untap it. That's actually fairly useful. That's not a fight effect, but pretty good. Moving on to the Mystery Green Shrine. Go Shinati of Boundless Vigor for 2 mana. Legendary enchantment creature Shrine. 1/1 with trample, and at the beginning of end step on your turn, you may pay 1. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on target shrine for each shrine that you control. Woof. Woof, woof, woof. And there's like those multicolored shrines. There's so many shrines. Wow. That's crazy. The shrine deck is going to be popping. I'll tell you what. We know this much. Moving on. Saga for 5 mana. For the first 2 phases, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or vehicle you control. It gains vigilance till the end of turn, and then exile it and transform it into a 5/5 with vigilance and haste Snake Warrior. Let's go. And then Shy Jeky, Jukai Visionary. They pronounce like wizards. You trolling me here? Please don't do this. As a 1/3, we can pay 2, tap it to return it to its owner's hand. Reveal the top 4 cards of your library. You may put a land from among them into the battlefield tapped. That's nice. So it's a creature that ramps, and then put the rest into the graveyard. We can also discard it for 2 + XX to return X target non-land legendary cards from your graveyard to your hand. Target X. So you could... Yeah, this is going in Jeskai Mill. This goes in the mill for sure. It helps us ramp. It's a creature, so it can kind of defend maybe too. And then we can discard copies to bring back... And it's an enchantment creature as well. So we're bringing back the white Eerie Ultimatum that brings all the enchantments and artifacts into play. Right? Bringing that back into our hand. So that's a key component. Shigeki? We'll get the names eventually. It's going to take us some time, and I'm sure the chat will help out as well. You guys always love the pronunciation mishaps, I'm sure. And I'm loving these other languages. Orochi, Meager Protector. This is a 1/1 that taps for mana, Snake Druid, and as long as it's modified, it taps for 2 mana. That's actually fairly decent. Then we have This thing that gives reach and +1/+4. It's a 1/4 with reach, and then you can configure it for those stats, which is pretty cool. The spinner bracelet. I guess I could get that maybe from there somehow. Probably not. Maybe the bracelet part, but definitely not the spinner. Elador. Anywho, Ishin, 2 Havens as 1 for 3 mana. So I kind of foreshadowed to this earlier with that other samurai, that now if it attacks, it gets another combat phase. If a creature attacking would cause a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers additional time. So, of course, this is great with Winota. Woof, that would be, crazy. Like, oh, man. So stupid with Winota. Like, absolutely bonkers. And then, also really good with that other samurai for the additional combats, right? Moving on. Akiba's Rescue for 5 mana to return target creature, vehicle card from your graveyard to the battlefield, then put 2 +1/+1 counters on it if you control an artifact and an enchantment. So a really nice recursion spell here. Fairly decent. Moving on, we have the Blade of Ani for 2. This is a 3/1 with Menace. An equipped creature has power and toughness, base power and toughness of 5/5, and gets Menace and is a black demon in addition to its other color and types. Reconfigure for 4. What a fantastic aggro card. Thirst for Knowledge for 3. Instant speed. Draw 3 cards, then discard 2 cards unless you discard an artifact card. We love it. Rieto Sentinel for 3. A 3/3 defender artifact creature construct. And when it enters the battlefield, target player mills 3 cards. And then we can pay 3 to put a target card from a graveyard on the bottom of its owner's library. That's actually, that could be a thing. That could be a combo piece, right? Moving on, we have a 1/1 for 2 with Haste, which is very good. And at the beginning of your end step, you get to return it to its hand. You can discard it to draw a card, which is about the most silly thing I've ever heard of with Luris. So you would discard it, draw, play it from the grave, attack with haste, comes back to your hand, discard it, draw, repeat the process, repeat the process, repeat the process. Woof. Moving on. Kami of Industry for 5, 3/6. When it enters the battlefield, return target artifact with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard directly to the battlefield. That's a good sign. It gains haste, even better, and then sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. That part's kind of sad, but maybe you can get some value from it through a different sacrifice effect or something. Acquisition Octopus for 3, 2/2, and whenever it or an equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, draw a card, reconfigure for 2. That's actually decent. March of Bergion Life, I don't even know, for 1+X at instant speed. As an additional cost to cast this spell, you may exile any number of green cards from your hand. It will cast for 2 less this way, which is nice. Then you get to choose target creature with mana value less than X. Search your library with the creature as the same name as that creature. Put it into the battlefield tapped and shuffle. So, this is pretty interesting if your opponent has a creature that you also have, or you can pull out a copy of a creature that you have. Really cool stuff. When we were young, for 4 instant speed and up to 2 target creatures, each get +2/+2 until the end of turn. If you control an artifact and an enchantment, those creatures also gain lifelink. Hashtag don't care. All right, we have a 4/4 for 5 mana, Blooming Deer with Reach, which is pretty nice. And whenever it enters the battlefield, look at the top 5 of your library, reveal a creature, enchantments from among them, put it into your hand, the rest in the bottom of the library, random order. If you didn't put a card into your hand this way, gain 4 life. It's got some utility here for limited, for sure. Moving on. I have no idea where we are. I feel like we got kicked down a whole bunch. Because we've definitely, yeah, we did. We got kicked out of town. We got to find our place. Sorry. Yes, we talked about that. We've gone through all of these. Yes. Okay, that was the gain 4 life. Beautiful. On to the green legendary dragon spirit. Kura the Boundless Sky for 5 mana as a 4/4 with flying and death touch. When it dies, choose 1. Search your library for up to 3 land cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle. Decent, right? Getting lots of land for a landfall thing, maybe. And then create an XX green spirit creature token where X is the number of lands that you control. Pretty decent. And keep in mind the mirror that will allow you to have multiple legendaries in play. And then if someone deals with your mirror, now you get multiple death effects from your copies of legendary dragons, which is pretty neat. But give it a rest with the dragons, wizards. It's a little much. Replication Specialist for 5 as a 3/4 with flying, and whenever a non-token artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 2 if you do create a token that's a copy of that artifact. Nice. Roaring Earth for 2, an enchantment, and whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or vehicle you control. Channel for 2+X. To put X +1/+1 counters on target land you control, it becomes a 0/0 green spirit with haste. It is still a land. That's actually not bad. The Mech Hanger, tap for generic, tap for 1 mana of any color to spend only on a pilot or vehicle spell. Pay 3, tap it, vehicle becomes an artifact creature, so crewing for 3 no matter what via the land, right? Crewing through your mana rather than the creature toughness. Oh, creature power, I should say. Now this card needs to wet the whistle here. It's wow. You can tell how good a card is by how much text it has on it for baseline reasons, and this has got a lot of text. So it's a 4/4 for 5 legendary creature, human ninja. Whenever it enters the battlefield, exile target card in opponent's graveyard other than a basic land card. Search their graveyard, hand, and library for any number of cards with the same name. That player then shuffles, and for as long as you control the Silent Spider, you may cast one of those exiled cards and spend mana as though it were any color. That was absolutely banging. I really like that card. Mindlink Mech for 3, a 4/3 with flying, and whenever it becomes crewed for the first time each turn until the end of turn, Mindlink Mech becomes a copy of target non-legendary creature that crewed it this turn, except it's a 4/3, and it's a vehicle artifact in addition to its other types, and has flying. Oh, my lord. Why is this card so good? Why is this card so good? This is absolutely insane. Wow. I just don't understand why this card is so good. It's a 4/3 with flying, crew for 1, super easy. And then you know, you just, that thing you crewed. Oh. The crew taps though, does it not? I just love it. I love it. Sorry. At 45 minutes, it takes me a little bit to parse some of these cards. I did misinterpret it. I'm going to be honest, the first time I looked at this, I thought it made the other thing a copy of it. But it itself is the copy of it, but it remains a 4/3 with its flying, which it has, right? So whenever it becomes crewed for the first time each turn until the end of turn, Mindlink Mech, which is itself, becomes a copy of target non-legendary creature that crewed it this turn, except it's a 4/3, a vehicle, which it already is, and the flying, which it already is, right? So you're really just looking for an attack ability, right? Whenever this creature deals damage or something, like this, or, you know, something with, you know, maybe double strike, right? Something like this, or trample, some form of effect that you'd want to grab off of another creature. So you would get the copy of it, which is pretty decent. We like that. Touch the Spirit Realm for 3 in enchantment. And when Touch the Spirit Realm enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 target artifact or creature until Touch the Spirit Realm leaves the battlefield channel, which means discard it for 2. And then exile target artifact or creature, return it to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So, you know, this is both an offensive and defensive card, which is quite nice. You can flicker or just hard remove. The Grave Lighter for 3, 2/2 with flying. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. If a creature died this turn, otherwise each player sacrifices a creature. That's fantastic. Roadside Reliquary. Add generic mana, pay 2, tap it. sacrifice it, draw a card if you control an artifact, draw a card if you control an enchantment. Potentially a double draw late game. That's decent. The most broken card of today, the Thundering Reiju. I remember this from earlier. This is a 3/3 with haste for 4. Whenever it attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Then Thundering Reiju deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of other modified creatures you control. So it itself will become modified through the attack and +1/+1 counter. It is other modified creatures you control, though. But you can put that +1/+1 counter on another creature you control, so you do get that modified situation going on right away. This is a very good card. Helena and Alina, you know, there's so many things that are scary about this. Woof. At least it's not a dragon. It's a spirit, right? Could be worse. And then the Toshawi Guide Bot for 4. It's 2/1, and when it enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. We can pay 4, tap it, draw a card. 1 less to activate for each modified creature you control. That's pretty cool. That's actually not that bad. Moving on to February 3rd. This is our last day. Can we get through it? Aki Ronin for 4. That's a 1/3. Goblin Samurai. Look out, Goblin players. Whenever a Samurai or Warrior you control attacks alone, you may discard a card if you do draw a card. Decent. The Exemplar for 2. It's a 2/1. Whenever it attacks alone or a Samurai or Warrior, you guys are familiar by now. It gets +1/+1. Don't care. Then we have the Dokuchi Silencer. 2 mana. Ninjutsu for 2. When it deals combat damage to a player, you may discard a creature card. If you do, destroy target creature or planeswalker card that player controls. That's decent. Really nice. Then we have Invigorating Hot Springs, which I actually like that. That is probably a real-life image of me. Just chilling in the pool, baby. It enters the battlefield with 4 +1/+1 counters on it. Modified creatures you control have haste. That's amazing. Remove a counter from the Hot Springs to put a counter on target creature you control. Activate only as a sorcery and once per turn. That's value. You know, an enchantment for 3 that gives modified things haste, and you can modify things yourself once per turn. Wow. That's a good card. This Hot Springs is dope. Moving on, the Unforgiven one. This is a 2/3 for 3 with Menace. Whenever it attacks, return target creature card with mana value X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the number of modified creatures you control. Wow. That's a pretty good uncommon. That is decent. Containment Construct for 2, a 2/1. Whenever you discard a card, you may exile that card from your graveyard. If you do, you may play that card this turn. Oh, wow. That's good, too. Moving on, we have the Samurai Hat. No, the Ogre Helmet. I mean, I guess, basically. An equipment creature. Or, sorry, an artifact creature equipment. All the same thing, right? Equipped creature gets +2/+2. Whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice it. If you do, discard your hand and draw 3 cards, reconfigure for 3. I like this quite a bit. The ability to discard an empty hand to draw 3 more cards is very, very good. It's a little bit of a workaround to get there, but, you know, maybe it's got haste from the Hot Springs. You never know. You never know. The Rabbit Battery is a 1/1 with haste. Equipped creature gets +1/+1, has haste, and the reconfigure is for 1 red. I don't mind that. I like haste. I mean, it's no Hot Springs, but it's good. Then we have the Seismic Wave. Instant speed for 3, 2 damage to any target, 1 damage to each non-artifact creature target an opponent controls. Instant speed. Sure. The Springleaf Avenger for 5, Ninjutsu for 4. It's a 6/5. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, return target permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. I love it. Dragon Spark Reactor for 2. Artifact. Whenever it or another artifact enters the battlefield under your control, put a charge counter on it. Pay 4, sacrifice it. Deal damage equal to the number of charge counters on it to target player, and that much damage to 1 target creature. Wow. This is a very good card. You can play a bunch of artifacts per turn. Like, artifact tokens or something. Like, oh man, we're going to figure it out. But that's a good card. And then for 10 mana, Explosive Singularity. Sorcery speed. As an additional cost to cast the spell, you may tap any number of untapped creatures you control. This spell will cost 1 less for each tapped creature this way. 10 damage to any target. So you want to hit with Vigilance attackers, then tap those Vigilance to deal more damage. Right? Pretty decent. Moving up, and we're almost done. We're 4 more cards. I can't even count anymore. Flame Discharge for 1 + X instant speed, X damage to target creature or planeswalker. If you control a modified creature as you cast this spell, it deals X +2 instead. Okay. That is a good card. Dockside Chef for 1/1/2, pay 2, sacrifice a artifact or creature to draw a card. That is also a good card as an enchantment creature. Man, do you guys remember Enigmatic Incarnation? That deck is going to be updated in Historic this set. Wow. The Rizona Azari Commander for 3, a 3/3 with haste, legendary human samurai. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, if it doesn't have indestructible counter on it, put an indestructible counter on it. And whenever combat damage is dealt to you, remove an indestructible counter from it. So this is really, really good against those control decks. We love it. The Blade Blizzard Kitsun for 3 mana, a 2/2 with ninjutsu for 4, double strike. We don't ever really mind double strike. We really like to see it. And yeah, screw you, Valkyrie. Let's refresh. Oh my lord, we do have a blue shrine to look at. Decent. Legendary enchantment creature for 2/04 flying. At the beginning of your end step, you may pay 1. When you do, target player mills X cards where X is the number of shrines you control. Stop it. That is dirty. So the shrines are going to be a lot of fun. Holy Toledos. That was a lot of cards, man. I'm tired. Oh, 50 minutes. Woof. And we've still got more spoilers to go. We have 216 out of 302 completed. So, you know, roughly 75 spoilers left, which is pretty goofy, 80 spoilers. To go through, let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching. If you had any favorite cards that you want to see built around at the start of the set, don't be shy. Give me your opinions, and you know, maybe it's groovy, but I've already got a couple of big ideas that you guys are really gonna like. You know, help yourselves to another video. I've got some others pinned in the comments below if you're interested. Of my daily pick, right? It's like a curated pick from a specialist, right? You're definitely gonna want to watch this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a magical day. We'll see you soon in the next.